Hello, guys and gals. Me, Mutahar, and I haven't really seen many people talk about this, so I'm going to talk about it because I like talking about internet safety, internet censorship, all that kind of stuff. Now, what if I told you an entire country just got entirely removed off of the internet, okay? Wild stuff to hear. Now, what was that country, ladies and gentlemen? Yeah, apparently Afghanistan's cell phone, internet services, and everything was basically cut down. So how the heck did we find out about this, ladies and gentlemen? Well, about a day ago, a day or two ago, an internet, watchdog group known as NetBlocks was just looking at the connectivity, and everything was la-di-da-di-da when it came to Afghanistan until at one point, all of a sudden, the connectivity cratered all the way down, literally within an hour, to 0%. And as we're talking, it is still at 0 to 1%. So yeah, ladies and gentlemen, all of a sudden an entire country gets removed from the internet. Basically, their people not only get censored, they get completely disconnected. And I believe Afghanistan is like 40 million something people. So just imagine, okay? You wake up one day, you're an Afghanistani guy or gal, and you're like, man, I wanna browse the internet today. Everything is gone. Oh, you wanna reach your family? Everything is gone. Everything is removed. You know, the basic pleasures somebody has in life getting taken away is absolutely going to piss somebody off. Now, you might be like, well, how does the Taliban end up doing it? Muda, how do they remove people from the internet? Well, they decided they weren't going to use any special, technical measures for this. They were just going to start cutting the fiber optic cables in regions. And you might be like, well, why would they do that out of nowhere? Well, it wasn't actually happening out of nowhere. They were actually doing this for weeks. And apparently it was taken to prevent vice, and alternative options will be put in place across the country to meet connectivity needs. Now, that could really mean anything. I mean, at this point, they could probably be using fucking carrier pigeons, because even that is better than what they have now, which is nothing. So for anybody that doesn't understand, vice basically means anything that is fun in this manner. So let's say you're having fun. Let's say you're just relaxing. Let's say you're goofing off with your pals. That could be vice. Some people could look at it as, hey, maybe they're wanting to ban internet pornography or something of that nature, which I'm sure the Taliban could have done if they really wanted to, without completely throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It really, in my opinion, and again, I think most people can agree here, it's a way for them to censor their people and prevent an uprising, okay? You know, when people start talking, the people in power start getting a little freaked out. Now, obviously, look, when you destroy cables, right, if you look at how we connect to each other with the internet, we have things like, submarine cables, which is how we transfer a lot of data from each other. So, for instance, in the United States, these cables, which are owned and operated and maintained by separate entities, connect the internet all the way from the eastern seaboard to, say, Europe and the United Kingdom. And of course, this is what it looks like down over here. These cables literally are carrying our memes, videos, everything across the world for everyone to consume. Now, the thing about it is we have multiple different options. So you might be like, well, couldn't we bypass the Taliban if we use things like Starlink? And you're absolutely right. Things like satellite internet do bypass whatever the Taliban government wants to impose. But remember, satellite internet ain't cheap. And I'm sure for the average Afghanistani, purchasing any satellite connectivity material is probably going to be regulated by the Taliban. So if they catch that shit around your house, you could be looking at a pretty nice beheading your way. Or the other thing is they easily just can't afford it. If I'm in Canada and I go to Starlink and I order Starlink right now, shipping in 1 to 2 weeks to my house can cost me somewhere around $500 Canadian. And that's just what I'm paying right now. Then the actual service costs like fucking $140 plus the service tax, I guess, which is just for the first. What a goddamn I hate these stupid fucking mini taxes, man. They're just so unnecessary. But anyways, not the point of it, okay? $140 a month. You know, I'm paying less for fiber optic connection that is of higher quality than what Starlink is providing. But I don't live anywhere remote. It is something that I don't need. If you live in a place that's remote or a place where the government can, I guess, control every single ISP, that might be a thing. Now, I believe Starlink does service the entire world. I'm sure they would be able to service Afghanistan. I'm just also sure that most Afghanistanis are not going to be getting access to it. So for the people in Afghanistan who are running their YouTube channels like Beyond the Hindu Kush, yeah, this guy was just uploading videos about Afghanistan, all right? You know, he had a community, a small but vibrant community of like 170 people. And all of a sudden, 3 days ago, we're not seeing any updates. So even the people that are providing a positive glimpse of Afghanistan beyond the oppression that we see, yeah, all of a sudden they're just gone, man. They are gone into the ether. It really is like a fucking digital Thanos snap out of existence. It is crazy shit to see. And again, I know for some people who are like, well, I live in a place where this can happen. The reality is you've just seen another country become North Korea. So for instance, if you look at what's been affecting them, their airlines have been affected because obviously internet connectivity has been disrupted. Things like health, for instance, are currently affected. So out of nowhere, they not only threw the baby out with the fucking bathwater, but they really didn't think about the actual major health, the actual logistic related implications regarding, okay? Because I don't think the fucking Taliban necessarily has a whole bunch of expertise behind it. Remember, these are people far into the past, okay? And I thought things were going to change ever since, like, they became more friendly with the US government. But, in the last 6 months to about a year, they've kind of just went off and back into their own way. And all of a sudden, Afghanistan is now a country that is completely fucking disconnected from us. People were complaining about Saudi Arabia apparently buying like EA, but even Saudi Arabia, for as religious as they are, would never, from my understanding, at least disconnect people from the internet, okay? This is an extreme measure to take away from the vices that people are engaging in. And how much of those vices were seriously crazy? I think a lot of it, like I said, is meant to prevent public dissent. This is what censorship is ultimately. It's not there to protect the health of a culture. It's there to fucking censor people so that they don't uprise against you. Because if people realize there's a better way to live, not under oppression, they're going to at least fight back, okay? Or at least try to. And the internet is a fucking amazing tool for that shit. Now, obviously, you might be like, well, what other option do they have if it's not Starlink? Well, obviously, there are ways that, at least if you're in Afghanistan, if you have access to, the ability to create a decentralized mesh network, you could potentially be able to have your own network that is outside the control of the Taliban. And of course, this is not something that I would believe is practical, but again, for any of you guys out there that are like, I want to set a mesh network in like my homestead or something, right? Like just for my local community, you can buy devices like this, for instance, these little car trackers and so on and so forth. You can flash and configure them using the guides that are available. And of course, you can connect to these devices using iOS applications, Android applications, or just web clients. So you can theoretically just build your own internet, which is maybe what some people will have to do. Maybe they might have to go to like old school radios just so they can at least communicate over distances with their loved ones. Because you really do take the internet for granted sometimes until you realize that very quickly it can be yoinked away. And this is not a situation where you can just spin up a fucking VPN and they literally cut the fucking infrastructure, okay? There is literally no way to fix that. At any level, the hardware itself is gone, okay? There ain't no software that exists to fix broken hardware, so to speak. Now, one of the things that really kind of hits me about this too is like, again, the North Korea example I brought up was pretty apt. North Korea is also a country where like accessing the internet is not necessarily allowed. For instance, if you are somebody that wants to see what North Korean websites look like, there are a few websites like these that exist, and I have accessed these on my channel. For instance, Air Koryo is a place where you can go to purchase tickets, that this flight offers. Now, obviously, the prices over here are well outside of the scope for the average North Korean, from my understanding, but yeah, you can access certain websites in North Korea. But there is a deeper layer. There is a layer known as Naenara, which I have browsed a little bit on my channel. If you ever saw my Red Star OS videos, this is a long, long time ago. But obviously, countries like North Korea, for instance, are not totally disconnected. Even their own people, from my understanding, can access their own version of an internet, the intranet for them, where they have their own cell towers, their own, smartphones, their own devices, operating systems, network protocols, and using these, they can at least actually have access to an internet. Even if it's a highly censored internet, they can at least still communicate with their loved ones. What's happening in Afghanistan is fucking insane. All right? People have completely been disconnected from each other overnight, okay? Literally overnight. The fucking Taliban comes in and starts cutting down the internet, okay? Good old Chris Chan, Bob Chandler style, cutting that shit down. Now, obviously, the other thing about this too is I've kind of realized that, on the topic of internet censorship, even beyond all of this too, what the Taliban could have probably done, and I'm pretty sure they might have inquired it, was to actually reach out to the Chinese government about setting up a firewall. Now, for anybody that doesn't know, literally this month, there was a 500 gigabyte leak of the Chinese, internet firewall, like source code, internal documentations, everything. And it came out that apparently the countries that were buying services from a platform known as Gigi, right here, Gigi Networks, they were selling this thing called Tianzhu Secure Gateway, which is billed as a full-featured one-stop solution to network perimeter security. It performs deep packet inspection on network traffics, classifies their content. Basically, the core of this is that they are setting systems that track every little packet on the internet, because the way the internet works is very similar to this. For instance, if I go over here and I ping Newgrounds, for instance, you can see that I'm sending data. So basically what's happening is, the systems that the Chinese government is selling through Gigi, for instance, to the rest of the world, they're looking at every single one of these packets and seeing just where things are sending to, what's being sent, and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, for China, you can still bypass the Great Firewall using VPN services. You can't necessarily buy VPNs or download them in China, but you can always fly into the country, and provided you have VPN apps on your phone or laptop, you can bypass their firewall. That's something that still, is a circumvention. But going back to the leaks, for instance, right? Some of the countries that were buying from them or allegedly in talks were Pakistan, Myanmar, Ethiopia, and Kazakhstan. So countries that are beautiful in their own right, but ultimately led by people that prefer censoring their own so that there isn't any form of fucking uprising. Internet censorship is so far intensive now that, seeing the amount of technologies that are now being sold is mind-boggling. It seems like the internet's about to become a place where instead of all human beings freely communicating with each other, we are now going into our own little segregated sections. It's actually reflecting a lot of what reality is, okay? In the real world, everyone is isolated, obviously, to their own countries, right? And few people in those countries get to fly out and experience the world. It really is a privilege for you to travel to other countries, get visa access. But for, again, internet services, we used to live in a world where communicating with an Afghanistani person, was really easy. You just pull up their screen name on whatever social media service and you talk to them. But now that person has went offline for an indefinite amount of time. And I think it's not far off from the world where, in the future, even living in North America, there's going to be a mass restriction on the amount of services that we can access without proving to the government who we fucking are. That freedom and that anonymity is all but a fleeting thing. Now, obviously, the Taliban is a pretty extreme example. Not every government is like the Taliban, clearly. But what the Taliban did is not far off from other oppressive regimes around the world. There ain't nothing stopping any other country from just starting chopping the infrastructure and cables and creating a new system to replace it, whatever that may be down the road. But yeah, we literally have seen another country become North Korea or at least China overnight. And it's fucking scary to see. But yeah, nobody was really talking about it. I wanted to kind of yap about it because I thought it was mind-boggling to see. And it's funny that the VPN companies are bringing this up. Brother, you can't even use the VPNs. They straight up say, our tools help to bypass censorship. But even just here, everything's been cut off. There ain't nothing you can do when things are cut off. So I really do hope the best for the people in Afghanistan. I'm sure that they absolutely can't see what I'm saying right now. They can't hear my words. They can't see my face because of how the internet has been chopped off. But yeah, hopefully things do get better for them. And I am genuinely fearful. The internet allows us a window into seeing the lives of people. They can share their stories. Now they have been completely muted. And that, to me, is some really scary shit. You know what I mean? That is some, and it's also similar to like websites that you may not even like. Websites, when they're the target of a lot of these of a lot of these governments and a lot of these like technical groups, or these these ASNs, these ISPs, you can censor anybody you want off the internet. But this is so extreme. This is like gone from existence. They've been Thanos snapped out of existence. Crazy shit to see. If you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike if you dislike it. I am out.